All right. I am here with Tyson Leslie. He is a multi-instrumentalist, amazing Nashville musician. A lot of people know him as, a keyboardist, but I know he plays bass, he plays guitar, he sings. And he's one of the workingest guys I know as far as Nashville goes. He's working to keep rock alive in Nashville with his Rare Hare series. And he's also a musician that plays with Vixen, the legendary 80s rock band, all girl rock band. He is the one male in that tours with that group. And
Yeah.
man, I'm just thankful to have you here today, man. And yeah,
Well, thanks for having me.
yes,
I always
indeed.
like doing it.
Yeah. So, there's something that I thought about today. And I was, thinking about Rare Hare. And this is your concert series that you kind of put on, and you feature all the rock musicians in town, and then a lot of guys that do country gigs
Yeah.
that just want to play rock and roll. And it got me to thinking how many actual rockers there are in Nashville. Can you tell me about that?
I mean, I started the show in 2015 when I was brand new to town. I was playing country music for the first time in my life, playing keys for Tracy Lawrence, and I was on the bus with a guy named Tom Hurst who had a jam that he put together every month called Loud Jams. And at the time when it started, it was all like guys who had sidemen gigs for a living. So they're all guys who played for blank, any
Yeah.
given country person or whatever. And Rare Hair was originally just a band. It was going to be this band that was going to play a bunch of deep cut 80s hair metal stuff. And when I saw this kind of format, I kind of came to the realization that the concept as a band probably wouldn't work or wouldn't have a lot of last staying power or
Yeah.
drawing power. People aren't going to come out to see a bunch of guys play deep cut Dawkins songs and Mr. Big and stuff like that but what I did discover is all of the people at these jams were my age, like around my age. I'm 50 years old this year. Everybody else was around, in their 40s to 50s, around that age period. So they all grew up on the same stuff. So I thought it'd be a really fun way to kind of strengthen the scene and get everybody to get together and hang and stuff on nights off where they don't ever get to see each other and play a bunch of old 80s stuff that we never ever would ever have a scenario to play otherwise. You're not going to hear those kind of songs in bars and stuff like that because I mean, it's called Rare Hair for a reason. We don't play Living on a Prayer and Sweet Child of Mine and any of those kinds of songs that you're
Yeah.
going to hear in any bar. You're going to hear bands like Badlands and Jet Boy and Dangerous Toys and a bunch of weird stuff like that. That's kind of
Yeah.
where the whole idea came from.
Now, and that is incredible in and of itself. But it got me to thinking, man, because the Sunset Strip scene was killed by however you want to think it was destroyed by, because that bastion of rock and roll that was putting out a lot of this stuff that you're covering,
Yeah.
because that no longer exists. Do you think that is why the current state of Nashville, dude, I mean, there's these kids now. There's guys that are 20, 30 years
Tons.
old, and they look like we did,
Yeah.
back then. And they're all about that stuff, but they have to go to Nashville because that's the only place you can play.
It is weird, I mean, there was guys in my last show that I just did about a week and a half ago, and they were all in their early 20s. There's one guy that moved to town that's been subbing for me in one of my bands that plays strictly 80s hard rock and metal. He's 19 years old. I'm like, how do you know all these songs? We don't play the usual stuff. We're going deeper with Cinderella, and we're playing, deep cuts by Bon Jovi and Motley Crue and stuff like that. I mean, we're not just playing Kickstart My Heart. Like, and how do you know
Yeah.
all these songs? It's so weird to me. And then there's a huge influx of kids, and I say kids because that's what they are,
Yeah.
that legitimately look straight up, Nikki Sixx from 1986, or even like James Hetfield from 1983 with the high tops and the the look and the vibe and stuff like that. I love that that's coming back. I also love that there's a lot of young people that are kind of flying that flag of music. But I don't know. I mean, I can only attest that to their parents, maybe, and that's what they grew up in their household with their parents or their grandparents or whatever, because we're
Yeah.
getting to that age where it's like it could be either or. It's weird.
And that makes me think of, that nails it on the head, because, you'd have to have somebody guiding you towards that stuff, because it certainly is these days would be considered dinosaur stuff,
Right.
and music has changed so much. Metal has
So
changed.
much. But even like the current, like the big songs, the standards, so to speak, or whatever. I mean, Sweet Child of Mine came out in '88. I was sitting there learning that in '88 when it came out, and so these kids, if you go down up and down Broadway, for those of you who don't know, it's just the strip where it's the main strip where all the tourist trap, where all the bands play, and there's about 300-ish stages down there now, and all of them are playing Sweet Child of Mine, and one a Dead or Alive, or what's the other one? Living on a Prayer, and all of those kind of huge anthemic songs. But the difference is that you hear them played differently because they did not grow up on this music. Like, it wasn't instilled in their DNA like it was for you and I, because we had MTV, we had radio, we had all these different avenues of hearing these songs over and over and over. And these guys are literally learning it from scratch, from nothing. And so the challenge to me to be a 20-something-year-old musician down there and learn literally hundreds of songs within an extremely short amount of time is very daunting. And there's no wonder why these guys don't play stuff, as note for note as we do, because we've had years and years and years to learn these songs.
Yeah, for me, because I was actually on the strip at that time, and I can remember listening to A Sweet Child of Mine, that whole album, Appetite for Destruction, driving down to the Sunset Strip to go party. So, and around—
What was your band called?
I was in a band called Shock.
Okay.
And that band morphed into a band called Boy Elroy. And so I was literally writing songs at the same time that stuff was coming out. So I didn't, I was living the lifestyle, but I wasn't learning Sweet Child of Mine because I was trying to write my own trying to write my own thing. But it does speak to the DNA of playing that style and knowing where the player's head was at. What I'm hearing from you sounds like, you get on a gig, and I've done this. I get on a gig, and the band leader goes, "Play 100 Ways, Jeffrey Osborne." And I go, "Wait a minute, I don't know," And so I have to use my ear and follow the chord changes, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm playing, but I'm playing garden variety guitar because I don't know the exact guitar part.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what these guys are doing
all day.
Because a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it towards the end. I'm old. I can't remember stuff, and weird songs will get called that I've never heard. And so I pull it up on the thing.
Yeah.
And I use iReel because that's usually 90% right on the chords, at least.
Right. But then on the other hand, it's funny because it goes both ways. I did a gig with it was George Lynch was on guitar. It was a jam, and it was Highway to Hell, and that guy couldn't play Highway to Hell to save his life. I'm like, dude, this is the most standard, like, boring, normal song ever, and he doesn't have a clue how to play it because
he's never had to play it.
Career he's been playing his own songs. So,
he's never had to play it, and that speaks to it a lot. So, man, that is incredible. But it's the thing about, all these young guys, they're having to come to Nashville and be cover musicians.
Right.
Which is not usually where you think when you're 20,
No, I think unfortunately some of these guys, they'll get discovered. Some of these guys will play the game and do it right. People like Grace Bowers have played the game very, very well. That woman has not, she's like, I think 19 now. When I met her, she was 17 or 16. And within 2 years' time, she's, playing New Year's Eve with Lainey Wilson and she's doing all the right
Yeah.
things and going all the right places and being seen by the right people and all that. Another friend of mine from Kansas City, he's only been here less than 2 years. He just played his first arena show last night. It's great.
Yeah.
So I love
Yeah.
seeing that happen. So there is still that is still very much the dream is still possible and attainable. But there are also a lot of people who will come here and they will be stuck on Broadway their entire career.
Yeah.
And that's because they usually get in their own way, their own business sense or their own personal self-discipline maybe just doesn't fit with what people were looking for to be on the
Yeah.
road. It's all kinds of different things, as
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. You need somebody to vouch for you to get that road gig.
Yeah.
That's kind of
But,
that's kind of what it is.
but I'm finding guys that are talented too, like extraordinary talents down here. Great guitar players, exceptional singing, it's things like that. They will they're turning down all these kind of what I would call entry level touring gigs. And by that I mean even bands like you know, like a Vixen or like even maybe for a lesser extent, like a Every Other Mother's Nightmare or something like that. Nelson, bands that aren't, Motley Crue or Skid
Yeah.
Row or huge arena filler kind of bands. And they'll turn it down because the money isn't good. But the thing is that what they're not realizing is, okay, the money isn't great. Yeah, you're gonna make more money playing on Broadway and doing all that. But what you're going to miss out on is the networking opportunities that you have to join some of these entry level kind of bands that allow you to do all of the other things that you've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
I mean, literally a year from 2 days ago, last year, I was playing on stage with Alice Cooper and Kevin Cronin from REO Speedwagon and like just the names were ridiculous. Sammy Hagar. And I was like, how in the hell did I get here? But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm like, oh, I've worked my ass off to get here. I've
Yeah.
done a lot of
Yeah.
things to get here. This is
Yeah.
what I've wanted to do. And I'm 50 years old and I'm just now getting to do it. So
Yeah.
don't take that for granted either.
Yeah, that's a valuable lesson, man, because you know, and you saying that at 50, I talk about my channel is all about aging and the pressure of the business and all of these things that we're experienced as seniors of the scene and riding it out. There is no retirement in the music business and all that.
Right.
But it's heartening to hear that you're getting these things at that age. I didn't get my first platinum record until I was 57 years old.
Right. And that's more than I
57.
have. And I don't even have an aluminum record. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, so it's like, but I saw that clip, post where you said this was a year ago because I did a little research for this interview,
Yeah.
and I was going to ask you about that. I mean, you got Sammy Hagar, Kevin Cronin, Ace Frehley, Kenny Aronoff, Brad Gillis, all these people, and it's all because you did take these gigs and you're probably the king of networking. I would say you're the king in Nashville of networking.
That's one thing I've always been good at it's just because I like talking to people. I enjoy learning about their experiences and what kind of makes them who they are and whatever. And then obviously too, I just enjoyed the art of kind of, when I first moved here, the first month or not the first month, but after I've been here for a while, I'd say maybe around the 6th or 7th month I lived here, the entire month, Monday through Friday, I took somebody different to dinner or lunch or dinner every day. And it was expensive, but it was the way that I got to know people that quickly. And I figured out people instantly who I was going to be lifelong friends with and people who were just going to be acquaintances, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
that worked out to my benefit because, when I first put my very first original band together playing my own songs, my rhythm section was Taylor Swift drummer and bass player. That's
Yeah.
insane to me. It's
Yeah.
like what?
Yeah.
I just paid those guys $100 to play a set of my songs, and
Yeah.
then they're going next, in 2 weeks to go play a stadium.
Yeah.
It's like that's insane to me. But
That's the great thing about Nashville, and you said that, and it's funny. Just not last week, but the week before, I interviewed our buddy Mickey Gutierrez
yeah,
because he just played the Opry, and I'm like, you know what? Let's interview people while they're in the throes of it, rather than waiting till he's 60 and then, hey Mickey, how was it?
sure.
Find hearing this stuff, and he said the same thing. I remember he would always call me up. Hey man, let's do lunch. Hey man, let's do this. Let's do that. And it's a way of keeping in somebody's ear, creating,
Yeah,
it's about creating relationships, friendships.
right.
And
And our business is so built on that. It's unfortunately in a lot of ways it's just who you know. I was in a band called Pomeroy, and we toured all over the country, all over the universe in a van and trailer, and we were so close so many times, but it just never happened. And it was all because we never had that one person to vouch for us that could have taken us to the next level, whatever that happened to be. We had a lot of promises, empty promises, and people that were, I wouldn't say that they were liars. I think all of those people had good intentions. They just didn't maybe have the connections that they needed to have
yeah.
to get us to the next person. But we were selling, 100,000 CDs out of our car,
Wow.
and we were selling out places in Omaha, Nebraska, and Chicago, and all over throughout the Midwest, but we could not get a break.
What do you think? What was the end of a band like that when you realized that I mean, because that's a lot of success, dude, selling 100,000 copies.
Yeah, and we're out like, we did let's see, we started it, the band started in 98. I joined in 2002. We ended it around 2012. So at that
Wow.
point, we put out our last record. We decided to just go all out. We spent money and got a tour bus and did the whole thing. And by the end of it, we were so burned out and we couldn't stand each other. We pulled into that Walmart parking lot where our cars were parked, and we didn't say a word. We just got off the bus and got in our cars and went our separate ways and didn't talk to each other for months because we were just
Wow.
over it. Like we're just
Yeah.
we'd been all over the country, all over the world. We played in, for the troops and overseas and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, the last gig we're playing to like less than 50 people in Leavenworth, Kansas. We're like, fuck this, we're done.
Oh man.
But
It's a tough thing, man. And here's their burnout is very real. And
yeah,
if you're a side man, the artist will just get a new band. Or they'll replace each
yeah,
guy kind of as each guy gets more burned out.
yeah,
This guy's burned out, or he's too deep in his cups at this point, or whatever. Psh, gone. Plug in another guy.
yeah.
And when it's a band, I mean, at that point, you put so much time and effort into it that you just go, what can you do at that point? It's not
Right,
like, oh, well, we'll just bring some new blood in.
right, right.
Nashville will do
They
that. They'll
actually
bring.
tried that. I quit the band first. I was the first one to go because I was having marital issues and trying to save my marriage. And then the other guy, the guitar player, quit too. So they replaced us with two different people. That did not work at all.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think they did maybe 3 shows and said forget it and called it.
yeah. That's the thing about chemistry in a band.
Yeah,
If you've got something that works and you change one piece,
yeah,
even if that guy is better or
yeah,
maybe, or whatever, but it's never the same.
yeah. I mean, I've been watching it with Skid Row for 30 years. Almost like just watching these guys try to. They were some of the first people I got to know when I moved here, and now they're once again looking for a singer, and everybody's going, "How come you can't get their old guy back?" Well, the old guy's a pain in the ass. So like, for whatever reason, those things aren't working out with each other,
Yeah,
and this many years later, it's just not a viable option for them. And
yeah,
um, I feel bad for them because they're such a great band and they put out so much great material. But it's like that one voice, especially a voice as distinctive as Sebastian Bach, is an extremely thing. And they were probably the closest they've ever been with Eric, who they recently had. And then for, whatever reasons he had to duck really early in that career. And
I know.
it's been tough to watch those guys. I mean, Lizzie can only do so much,
Yeah.
She's got her own band to run.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Singer roulette, I like to call it. That was my experience in LA. We just never could find the right guy, and you're dependent on that. You can have the greatest band in the world, but you get one guy that can sing good, but he moves like shit, and then you get another guy who sings and moves good, but he looks like shit. Right. And then you get a guy who looks great and moves great, but he can't sing to save his life.
Yeah. Or you get all the good things, but he's just extraordinarily difficult to be around, And
then there's that. Yeah. That's how it is, man. It's tough, but we love music, and we fall in and out of love with music, right? Can you attest to that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my girl and I currently are both, I mean, she is an extreme burnout right now, and she's dreading to go into gigs, and I've been there too. That's where I was when I was trying to figure out whether or not when I got the call to move here to Nashville. I was extreme burnout. I hated going to work. I hated the gigs. I hated the people I worked with at the time. It was just, I'm like, okay, what else is there? Because this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
And I got the call to move here, and instantly my entire world changed almost overnight. I mean, I was working 4 or 5 nights a week right away, and then I'm jumping on a tour bus playing country music for the first time ever. I mean, so many things changed so fast. So, but it's been awesome. I mean,
do you think the change?
My life started at age 40. Really, career really started at late in the game.
Yeah, that's something that I think people would find interesting, because I get a lot of guys who'll say, "I'm 28. Is it too late?"
Yeah,
not in Nashville. It's not.
Right. And I thought it was too. I mean, my first big gig was with Corey Taylor from Slipknot back in 2008 and 9. And when that gig ended, I was like, well, shit, I'm done. That's it. That was my last shot, because I was in my 30s and I just really didn't think that anybody be coming to look for a guy like me at that age. When I went to Nashville to visit, I got a call from a guy named Rich Redmond who talked me into moving here. And when I came out here and noticed that everybody pretty much was around my age, I was like, oh, okay. And they're all playing for bigger artists than I had aspired to play for, So they're all playing for Taylor Swift or Florida Georgia Line or these kinds of bands, when all I wanted was the Alice Cooper gig,
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, these guys, that's why Rare Hare worked so well, because I'm like, those were the first guys I got to meet, and they were all extraordinarily, pro musicians, and those were the first friends of mine in town.
Yeah.
So they already knew what to do and how to do it and how it all worked. And so that very first Rare Hare show in January of 2016 was an extremely huge success.
Yeah.
It was so busy and packed in there. I was like, shit, I already need a new venue. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And not a bad problem to have for your first show.
Yeah. Figuring out something like that, and you figured it out quick, because like you said, just having a band that goes and plays those songs, it's not going to pull. But it's kind of like the concept of the jam. Yeah. Monday night at Bourbon Street, they have a blues jam. And so people go down there to play. But in your case, it's a more organized, hey, we're going to play this, this song that's not everybody knows. And we're going to get, I mean, dude, you've had all kinds of people play. Give us some of the names that play at this thing.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, it still blows my mind who's played at my own show. I mean, we've had Billy Sheehan a few times. We had Greg Bissonette. We've got the Carmine and Vinny Appice or Peace, depending on how you want to say it. We've had guys from Dangerous Toys and Enough's Enough and Winger. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. guys from Cinderella and Poison, just all the bands that we've covered. A lot of the
Yeah.
guys fortunately live here in town, so that's
Yeah.
always been cool. We've had Rachel and Rob and actually the old singer ZP from Skid Row. They all came out and played one time. We've had the entire band Enough's Enough and the entire band Faster Pussycat play. We do them on the Monsters of Rock cruise now every year. We get to do 2 shows, which has been, and those are incredible because those are literally all rock stars playing the show. Like it's
Yeah.
all people that I used to hang on my wall as a kid, and so then the fact that the first time I ever did this on the Megadeth cruise, I went into rehearsal. David Ellefson from Megadeth had put me in charge of running the rehearsal for the big All-Star Jam. And I walked into that rehearsal room and I was like, wait, I'm supposed to this is my entire childhood sitting in this room. Like, this is surreal. And I'm supposed to be in charge of these people. They don't know me, but I still, I was like Sylvester Stallone and Over the Top, you turn your hat out backwards and go to work. And we did. And I think that's why to this day, I'm still friends with guys from Anthrax and guys from Testament and some of these bands, because I didn't go into it intimidated. I was intimidated as hell, but I mean, I still got the job done. And he was like, man, that rehearsal went fast and everybody's really happy because we're done earlier than, we got done 2 hours earlier than we were supposed to be. So, and it's because of Rare Hare. It's because I've run this stuff so much that I know how to get them in and out and please the artists. And a big part of what you do when you do these kinds of things is it's a lot of personality juggling. You're dealing with all kinds of different personalities. And so you have to really be able to gauge what those people are like immediately so you can know how to cater to their wants and needs. And sometimes people are more needy and wanty than others. Other people are just go with the flow. Yeah. But a guy like Sebastian or whatever, let's get him done now. Let's get him in and out and get him out because he's got other things he wants to do. Yeah. And he doesn't have the patience to sit around. Yeah. So you just kind of figure that stuff out as quickly as you can and try to, it's really about people management.
Yeah. Now this is brings up something. I'm listening to what you're saying, and what do you do? And then maybe not even Rare Hare, but what do you do when a guy comes to rehearsal and he didn't learn the songs? What is your approach?
Well, there's been one of two things that has happened in that case. Either we run through the song, I'm like, hey man, you got to go through that again because you're missing stuff, and come back, or if you need to take a break, we can come back to this one in about 15 minutes and you can run it again. But there was one scenario where a guy was trying to read a Death Angel song, which, if anybody's familiar with that band, extremely complex music, and it's very fast. And he was trying to read a chart, and he was a drummer. I'm like, dude, there's no way. By the time you realize where you are in the song on that chart, they're already going to be like 6 bars ahead of you. Like, I'm sorry, we're going to have to.
You got to know it.
Song. So one of two things happens. I either replace them immediately with somebody that I think can pull it off better, or we just have to call the song. In that case, we had to call the song, which sucks because other people worked on the song. Yeah. Other people put the time in. And so those people had to not get to play as a result of one person not doing their work. So that's disappointing, but that's only happened one time.
Wow, that's an incredible thing, man. Because I've had people complain in the past about Nashville musicians, and with the Broadway thing, and everybody's kind of winging it and doing all that. Here's the thing: even the simplest song, you have to do your homework on, because you can't just listen to it and go, "Oh, it's easy. It's just DCG."
Right.
Well, it might be DCG, but how is the guy strumming the chords? What is he playing?
Is that an at 9 C or is it just a regular C?
Is he picking it? Is he finger picking? Is there a solo you need to learn note for note? There's a lot of
That's
stuff.
the thing. A lot of guys will skip, like they'll listen to the beginning of it and they'll be like, oh, okay, I got this. I'm good. I'm like, no, you're not, because there's a bridge coming up and you didn't listen to it. And now we're off the rails.
Yeah. It's a tough thing. And in a lot of cases in Nashville, it's a live rehearsal.
Yeah. Very much so.
And that's it is what it is, man. I try not to hopefully be in that situation, but I've had situations where somebody showed up, didn't learn the part. They had one thing to learn, one little 3-note horn part,
Right.
and they didn't have it. And I just said, look, man, you go somewhere now and you go figure this out, because this is the most important thing you're going to do tonight.
Right.
And you come back,
Right.
and I don't care what you have to do. I don't care if you have to miss having dinner or whatever you were going to do. Come back and nail that part. It's 3 notes, dude.
Right. Right.
You know, it's
Right.
you laugh about it now, but at the time, dude, I was just like, are you kidding me? You had one thing to learn,
Yeah.
you know? So, that's that. Now, when you tour with Vixen,
Yeah.
are you doing double duty? Are you tour managing or doing anything like that?
I am most of the time. I'm not doing as much in that world. I did it. I was TM for them since I started. But in the last year, we've actually been using Bob Galena, who's Lou Graham's tour manager, from time to time when he's not out with Lou. So, which has been awesome because that frees me up to just work on playing, concentrate on
Yeah.
just doing the gigs. Now, I still will most of the time, if Bob's not around, I'll do all this stuff like getting set lists printed, making sure we got all the room stuff organized, making sure transportation from the airport and to venue and all those kinds of things are taken care of. So
Yeah.
I'm still definitely boots on the ground most of the time.
Yeah. And are these fly dates?
Yeah, they're all fly days,
Yeah.
100%. We don't hardly ever. We never do bus travel, and every once in a while, if we have to do ground travel, we just rent a vehicle.
Yeah. And so your keyboard is provided, and I imagine you've got something you plug in and there's your sounds.
Yeah, yep. I've got everything on a memory stick and just put that in the back of the board, and I order the boards and I'm in charge of backline, making sure all the backline is correct for wherever we go. So yeah, that's what I do.
And for the guitar players that watch my channel, and I've got a lot of them,
Yeah.
what is the backline requirements for that gig? What is it?
Typically for her, she likes the Marshall, the DSL 2000s. So that's you got one for her main one, and then one as a backup just in case. And then there's just bass, a typical standard Ampeg SVT, and then that's it because the rest is keys and drums.
Yeah. Yeah.
We used to have 2 guitar players when Janet was in the band. Janet would play guitar on some songs, but not anymore.
And the band has gone through some singer changes over the years.
Yeah.
You had the original lead singer for a while.
Yep.
Then you had and then you had a
Lorraine Lewis.
Lorraine Lewis, right? And now you've got a new singer, Rosa, right?
Yes.
And man, she's really good, dude.
She's fantastic. And she is currently out with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which means that we do not work with during November and December. So she's out with TSO, and I unfortunately had to miss them when they came through town because I was working like usual. I miss everything.
You're working all the time. Like you probably have a gig to run to in a few minutes, right?
I work 7 nights a week. Yeah. I am not doing a 6 to 10, but I am doing 10 close tonight. So.
And what can you give people roughly an idea of what you would make, say, tonight? Tonight is we're filming this on a Monday night, so that's technically an off night, and this is technically off season.
Yes, so technically this is probably going to be slow tonight. So, I mean, average on the slow season and that particular band, Kid Rock's on the rooftop, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, you're making 175 to 200. Sometimes you luck out and be a little bit more than that, but during slow season, that's general. Now, during a typical good season, it's more like 250 to 300.
Yeah.
Up on the rooftop anyway. But then on Sundays, sometimes our goal is almost always 400. So
Yeah.
Sunday, it just depends on who your band is, how good your person is at running the tip jug, which is a whole different skill all in itself. And then, whether things are going on in town or not, that will bring us out of town.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough game. And like you said, being able to run that bucket, they have a name for it, and I'm not going to repeat it because it's offensive, right? But if I was a guy and y'all made me go take the bucket, you could call me that. I'd be all right with that. The double B phrase. I mean, I akin that. What you need down there is you need the David Lee Roth of buckets.
Yeah, very, very much.
Somebody that can hoppity bop, zippity bop, and run through the crowd and whoop, and get the money.
Personality driven, big time.
It's personality, man, and it's like a front man. Now I imagine you guys there's a lot of great singers down there. How is the talent down there these days?
I would say there's still a lot of there's a good crop of vocalists right now. Just like any other time, I'd probably say there's 80-20. You got 80% good, some really good singers, and then there's about 20% there. You can kind of take it or leave it depending on your own personality and your own taste.
Yeah. What do you think about people who think they're going to play Broadway and become a superstar?
Well, I mean, that's not the most extraordinarily that's like winning the lottery in that particular situation. It's extremely unlikely. The days of even just like in any situation where it's like in the Doors movie, for example, think about that movie and where they're playing the whiskey and the guys from the label are coming to see us tonight and all that stuff's long gone. Those days are so, and Broadway's not the place for that anyway. Yeah. Broadway's a place where all of us, we make money. That's it. That's the entire goal is our livelihood.
Yeah.
And that, so I always tell people, I'm like, I don't go play Sweet Caroline 9,000 times a week and Jesse's Girl and I Love Rock and Roll and Sweet Child of Mine, all the same old songs. I don't do that because I love doing it. Like, I mean, I love the fact that I get to play music for a living. Don't get me wrong. I love that. But I'm not up there playing these damn songs that I played to death for like thousands of times at this point in my life. I mean, I always make the joke, I played Piano Man more than Billy Joel at this point.
Wow.
And I'm only doing that because that's how I pay my bills. I'm not doing it because I love playing Piano Man every night, or whatever it is. And that's the case for most people. And I remember coming to Nashville and visiting and seeing my friend Jeff Krantz for the first time. And I was like, man, why does he look so miserable? Why does he look so bored? And why is he embarrassed for me to come out and see him? Because he came in, gave me that, like, don't come in here kind of thing. I'm like, it's Tootsie's. Then I was wide-eyed and I was like, wow, this is cool. And, here's a guy up there playing Hit Me With Your Best Shot. I didn't realize that was going to be me, 7 years later.
Yeah. I think,
please don't come see this band.
Yeah. I think for me, because I didn't come to Nashville and I wasn't a Broadway player. I did, I've always kind of done the corporate stuff and the weddings and that stuff, and then the touring stuff. So for me, the difference is we might play Superstition 1,000,000 times, but each night there would be a different drummer or a different bass player. Right. And if we wanted to, we could play it different. And we could improvise within the framework of the song.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas if you play I Love Rock and Roll,
Right.
You got to pretty much play that absolutely like the record.
Yeah.
And there's no room for your creative input.
And yet people still get it wrong.
They do. They do. It's like there's some great bands and great musicians downtown, but then there's a lot of things where it's people thrown together and they're hacking their way through tunes.
Yeah. But I mean, you have to. Like, most kids aren't going to be able to, you get $50 for, I don't know, whatever it is, Carry On Wayward Son or whatever. And well, if you don't know it, but you want to honor that $50, like, that's an interesting thing, because like as a consumer, I'm like, okay, that was pretty terrible. Should I ask for my money back? Like, I don't know.
You find that people don't care that you just brutalize the song. They just want to play human. They just want to play human jukebox.
Yeah.
And so that creates a deadly environment where subpar musicianship is being rewarded.
Right. Yeah, very much so.
Right. And I mean, I've been guilty of it sometimes. That somebody will come up with some money and you just go, well, man, we gonna have to do something. Like, it's $100, dude. We got to split this,
Yep. Yeah.
So I want, before we get out of here, I want you to tell me, is there something that you want to direct people to as far as Rare Hare or your Facebook or your YouTube channel or any of that? Because ultimately, this is a platform for you. We're going to have a lot of people that really enjoy this interview because they love this music. And yeah.
Yeah, all the Rare Hare stuff, it's RARE. HARE, like the rabbit. That was more like all the 80s bands spelled everything with the Z, silent Q and all that stuff. We were just kind of going an homage to that. So that everything Rare Hare, you can just find just Googling it or whatever. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/Rare Hare Nashville. So if you look at Rare Hare Nashville, you're going to find everything there. As far as me, I was, lucky to have a name that's not extremely common. So if you just look up the name Tyson Leslie, you can find me just about anything you need to find. And then, yeah, so that's the best way to do it.
Is she hungry?
Lynn is hungry.
She's hungry. All right. Well, I know how that is because I got one about the same age. So I'm going to say thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And man, we'll do this again sometime. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah,
all
man.
Right. Have a great one. See you, brother. All right. See you.